Hi, everyone. This is Pinar, and I have with me today Andrew Morgan, the founder of Right Off Boom. Hi, Andrew. Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Pinar. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be with you.
Thank you so much. So, as you know, we just do a regular chat here, nothing long-winded. And I want to ask you, I want to start by asking you the idea behind Right Off Boom. Like, how did you get started? How is going? And yeah, just a couple of sentences on that would be amazing.
Yeah, sure. So, Right a Boom just finished its third year in March, and the genesis of Right a Boom actually, Pinar, came from my work creating something called the Cyber Call. That is a combination podcast and video and chat. We used a platform called Crowdcast, right, coming out of the pandemic. And the idea was, to create something to simply help the channel, right? We're on our fifth year now, coming up on almost 7,000 MSP and MSSPs that have watched one or more episodes. We have hundreds that come every single Monday at 1 p.m. That have been following us for years. And the whole intent there, has been completely free, both cyber and business enablement for the channel. And we've had the who's who of cyber practitioners and business practitioners in the space on over the past almost now in our fifth year. During that time when COVID started to ease and conferences started to come back, one thing that I saw was that, there was no vendor agnostic event, right? In other words, is there an event for cybersecurity that is strictly to help partners that has no ulterior motive to sell a product that organization has? And not there's anything wrong, because there are phenomenal conferences out there for those types of sponsors and vendors. We just wanted to create something different, and that's what we set out to do. We've our little first event went for around 200 attendees, and this last event at the MGM Grand was 800. With a total of about, between sponsors and speakers and VIPs, we're around 1,250.
That's
So
Yeah, that's really amazing. I mean, that's an amazing success. And I was telling you this before we got started recording, is all I hear is good things about Right Off Boom. And I was also telling you that it's actually rare to hear that. And to your point, having this vendor agnostic way of approaching the channel might be the key to that.
well, the idea was, Pinar, if we could provide the best education, we would get the best and most mature MSPs. Not saying that's the only people that come to our event, but the bell curve certainly shows that. And if I can provide the most value to those organizations, then my thought was the sponsors will be happy, because we'll have the most mature organizations and they'll have fantastic conversations when they come to their booths at the vendor showcase. So that's really the methodology behind it.
Yeah. Yeah. So that brings me to my next question, Andrew. How do you see the current MSP space today, and how do you see that evolving, because you're in the heart of it?
Yeah. So it's an interesting question. So I think in order to look at the current space, you kind of got to look back a little bit. Believe it or not, there's a lot of gray hair in here, Pinar. I've been in the space since the mid 90s, before the dot-com crash. I actually worked at an air quoting MSP, because we weren't called MSPs at that time. We were system integrators and VARs. And so I understand I understand what it's like to sell. I was in sales, and I understand the challenges and what it's like for MSPs day in and day out on the front lines. And so what I've seen evolve, and I think it's just been fascinating, is this industry every 5 years has had to take some big change in technology and build that into their business and evolve, right, and grow. We had an amazing, I'm going to say, boom since the early 2000s when RMM tools came out.
Yeah.
We gained mass efficiency, and on the margin, Pinar, we really, as an industry, didn't have to worry about security for a good
Good old
12 years.
days.
Huh?
Good old days, right? Good old
Good
days.
old days, yeah. You know, if as long as you had a firewall, some email security, and some endpoint
Yeah.
security. Again, am I saying there was never anything wrong and MSPs didn't have to deal with some type of an attack and rollback and backups and things of that nature? Of course they did, but on the margin, there were not cyber threats to our space. That all changed in around 2016, 2017, when threat actors started to discover that these things called RMM tools provided command and control to all of the customers that the MSP was doing business with. And so you started to see a term that's in the industry called buffalo jumps, where threat actors would attack, gain access to the RMM, encrypt, wipe out the backups of all the customers. That's when all of a sudden MSPs, again, I'll use on the margin, had to basically look at 20 years behind the curve in security and shrink that as fast as possible in terms of maturity and capability. And then take COVID, right, that hit 2020. COVID was arguably one of the biggest blessings, ironically, for MSPs. If you were an MSP and you had begun your security journey somewhere before COVID, and you were starting to get on the fairway and understanding frameworks,
Yeah.
process, policies, and really starting to build some cyber maturity in your business, you saw your average seat prices over the past 4 years go from 150 a seat to 250 to 350, and you're seeing that even higher and higher in some of the more sophisticated financial services MSPs that are out there that are servicing hedge funds in the $400, $500, and $600 a seat. So, that's where, in terms of where is the industry today, it's fairly bifurcated. And what I mean by that is you probably have 10% of MSPs that are really pulling away from the herd. There's a lot of PE money, as you probably know, in the MSP space. We're seeing, the platforms, the roll-ups, et cetera. And those organizations have somewhat of an advantage because of scale. But I'm also seeing the ones that haven't taken on PE yet, that again, were earlier to market, become the most attractive ones out there in terms of MSPs, PE trying to buy them, but they are the ones that are winning business, probably for two main reasons: that they are growing at 20 and 30% year over year. And that is, they have two very important maturity levels. They have sales maturity and they have cyber maturity. And those two twin things are very aligned. So that's what I see the space today. Where I see it evolving, interestingly, I just came back from Roost had the first vendor agnostic automation conference called Flow. And where I see this industry going is MSPs that are building in automation around their processes are going to be the first movers to actually benefit from RPA type solutions. And I see that they're also going to be able to offer those as services, and I think very dramatically increase the stickiness in their customers because of that differentiation. And also, again, highly significant or much bigger MRR and seat prices as a result.
Yeah, excellent point. Excellent point about the automation. And probably maybe AI will play into that at some way, right?
We'll see. You know, I think AI is early. I'm sure it will, Pinar, in some way, shape, or form. I think there's lots of ways you could see AI. It certainly, from if you're working in a SOC, AI has a lot of applicability for both defenders and offense. But certainly, you know, I'm interested to see how this is going to play out. I'm not betting on one horse or the other. Joe Panettiere, who, you know, is a dear friend and you know, developed MSP Mentor, Talking Cloud, and he sold that, and then developed MSSP Alert and Channel ED and sold that. He said, you know, when you see the kinds of valuations on firms like OpenAI, and as an angel investor, which he is, them coming to me asking me if I want to invest, he said, if they're asking me to invest, I'm kind of wondering just if could be a little bit hot of an industry, meaning a little inflated. So, you know, Joe's a smart man, so I always listen to folks in this industry that are brighter than me, and I think he's got a good point.
Yeah. Okay, so we talked about the MSPs. Let me ask a question about the vendors. So what do you think the vendors can do to support the channel better? Or are there some things that vendors are missing out when it comes to supporting them in a way that MSPs really actually both want and need?
Yeah, it's an excellent question, and as a vendor, I'm glad you're asking it. I think the first and foremost that the thing that a vendor can do for themselves is create a community for their partners. So in other words, help them, right, in any way that's reasonable, right, in terms of understanding your solution better, helping them with what, you know, might be certain sales challenges, process challenges, and things that intertwine with the messaging and thematic that your solution brings to market. The other thing that always I would encourage any vendor to think about is the first sale is really not the final sale. And let me kind of, if I could, just impart what I mean by that, Pinar. So if you ask most security vendors, I'm going to take away endpoint, right? Because EDR, as an example, is prolific. If you buy an EDR, you're going to deploy it everywhere. But the other security solutions, if you were to kind of do some type of poll, you'll find that most security vendors will say, if you ask them, hey, what percentage of penetration do you have across the entire customer base? It'll be 10, 20, 30%. So I say that not to be offensive. I say that because the MSP's biggest challenge is sales. All right, because if you think about most MSPs, they are engineers turned business owners, and sales isn't their first love and or what they're really comfortable at. So as vendors, we need to recognize if we really want to get penetration in their customer base, we really need to help them become better at selling. And that's really where anything we can do in the channel to help them with sales education, that to me is really important. And lastly, with that is, if you think about it, if you really have a good security solution and it really should be ubiquitous in their stack, we're actually failing the customer if we're not getting it out there. Right? We're failing the customer, and as the vendor, we're failing the MSP because we're not helping them properly do that. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, and it's really also empowering them, or giving them the tools to discuss the use cases, the business outcomes, right? What's in it for the client versus all the features and bells and whistles, because the average SMB or the average client neither understands nor cares about all these features. Like, hey, how does it help me? Like, does that give me the peace of mind to really go and be productive, instead of asking my employees to think about security 24/7, which they will fail at, right? Because an employee, they have billions of things to do. But I really agree with you on the fact that we can do more in terms of sales enablement and education.
And you make a good point. I'll just end this, maybe this question with this comment, Pinar. Do you know what the number one outcome in most sales is these days over the past 4 years?
What is it?
The number one outcome in a sale right now over the past 4 years is no decision. And the reason is, and I'm giving you kind of a prelude without telling you who it is, who our keynote speaker at Write a Boom is this year. That they're going to talk about customer confidence, and customer confidence, not in the way we think of it. Customer confidence is that customer confident in their internal decision-making process, not in your product.
100%.
Right. And because a lot of the time we haven't given them the tools to say, hey, look, I don't want to, it's always about our product. Let me talk to you about how you can make a good decision. Whether it's my product, let me tell you what's going to happen internally in your organization when you're talking to your key stakeholders, the confusion that's going to occur if you don't have this information, and this information. So,
yeah, excellent point, Andrew. And then, okay, so my last question to you, like, as the founder of Write a Boom, like, how does your day-to-day look like? Because Write a Boom is once a year, of course, but I know there's a lot of preparation, getting sponsorships or the speakers. Like, how does your day-to-day look like? I know you work out a lot. Aside from that, what else? How does the day go?
Yeah, that's not the majority of my day, Pinar. Yeah, so right, believe it or not, I always thought, like, when you do a conference, oh, you'll have some time off after. There's no time off. So as soon as Write a Boom 24 ends, Write a Boom 25 starts.
Yeah.
It's a massive undertaking every single year. But aside from that, I would probably say 20 to 25% of my time is spent with community efforts like the Cyber Call, talking to MSPs, helping them in their business, community efforts with Center for Information Security, CIS. There's a big partnership there. There's a big partnership that we have with John Strand and Black Hills Information Security and their anti-siphon division that educates hundreds of thousands of people worldwide. We've put about close to 5,000 MSPs now through one or more of John Strand's courses that he offers. And then the rest is, like I said, between Write a Boom, Pinar, and I do some consulting for cybersecurity vendors on go-to-market.
Oh, okay. I see. Well, thank you so much, Andrew. I know you're a busy man, and thanks so much for making time for us.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Pinar. It's awesome seeing you as always.
Thank you.